everyone. Today we're going to further our lecture to talk about plan views. Our next assignment is doing a floor plan. So we want to continue about our multi-view drawings, and we're going to dive more into the specifics of what a plan view is and all of the attributes and what it entails. So let's get started, shall we? Open up that PowerPoint and let's flip the camera to that. Okay, here we go. So right now we're going to talk a little bit, let's get to the beginning here. We're going to talk a little bit about our multi-view drawings, floor plans specifically. And here is some of the vocabulary you'll be hearing during this process. Some you've already heard many times. We'll keep reiterating the same vocabs to make sure it gets in there, but we are talking about plan drawings. A little bit about section drawings and their weights. Remember, weights have to do with line weights. Elevation drawings, that's part of plan drawings. We did talk about orthographic projection last week specifically, and we'll talk further in the future when we do a project. Multi-view drawings, that's what we're really focusing on in this series, and plan views are a multi-view drawing. We talked a little bit about horizontal plane, spatial cues, poche, we touched on that before, filling in. Section cuts and the north arrow, I'm going to get into that. We'll talk a little bit about different line weights again, and textures, hidden lines, some graphic things you need to know, conversions, walls, doors, windows, and cabinetry, stairs. So let's get started. So multi-view drawing, remember we discussed about orthographic projection, creating another side to something by projecting it. And we did talk about the different types of multi-view drawings: plan drawings, section drawings, elevation drawings, and orthographic projection of 3D drawings, which are called axonometric or paraline. We're going to focus today on plan drawings. Now, there's characteristics about these multi-view drawings. They don't reflect reality. Like we talked about, they're very one-dimensional. So they're conceptual in form, and they don't really represent the subject matter's natural look. You don't see something straight on. It's always at an angle. So we must create these multi-view drawings in 2D, two-dimensional fields, and then we study the relationship between them. And as I've discussed before, we always want to make sure that we have different sides of stuff. So, you might have one face of it, but then you have to figure out that elevation view and then this elevation view. That's multi plan drawings. So we have different sides to different things. Now, we also want to talk a little bit about our graphics and what's required in the placement and some of the primary tools we use. This is the primary tool we use, drafting, to communicate in construction and fabrication. So this is the number one thing. This is why you're learning a multi-view drawings. This is how we communicate. And our plan drawings, what we want you to understand, this is what we'll start this week is floor plans, a general plan characteristic and its use. So plan drawings are orthographic projection on a horizontal plane. Remember, they are just looking down at something, and you can project them up to create a three-dimensional object, but it's a planned view. So it's looking down on an object from above, and it emphasizes a horizontal arrangement or pattern. It's a parallel projection to the plan view are true to size and shape. So this is a plan view looking down at something. When you project it up, you can start to see all the multi-sides of it. We're just going to be looking at the plan view, which is looking down at something. So plan view depicts the width and the lengths of stuff, as we kind of talked last week, but not the height. Remember, when we're getting to like elevations, you need the height in order to create those other views. But in the plan view, you don't have that information. That's not what you're revealing in the plan view. But you are revealing other things, architectural details, certain hidden objects through your different line types. So we're going to focus on the horizontal plan. And that is basically this outline here. And so it does not represent any vertical surfaces. Now, the architectural plan is used to describe information. You are able to see the area of the floor. You're able to see maybe furniture placement and things of that nature, even materials often. And even the site view from a plan, what's going around it. And so those are some of the things that we look when we are looking at a plan view. So they're shortened. We are just staring down at basically the structure and the walls. Now, the attribute to this general condition is that you're cutting a house or a subject in half around 4 feet above the floor. So as you cut it, that's what we're seeing, only those items. So that's some of the characteristics. It's a horizontal cut right across, like we're slicing a cake horizontally, the way the layers are going, not against them. So this is a horizontal cut through a building, and that is going to give you your plan view. It's really important you understand that that's just a horizontal view. Through orthographic projection, which we discussed, you can bring the walls of the plan view to create different viewpoints, but you need the heights and information to do that. So floor plans show the configuration of the structure and the placement of things, such as your fixtures in bathrooms, maybe stairwells, things that are built into the system. Windows we'll see on a plan view, and often door swings. You may even see materials, tile, hatches, and so forth, that represent different flooring. You'll also notice cabinetry and so forth. So these plan views do have different information that you can really get from the plan view. And we also see their, relationship of how a house or a space would flow through one room to the next. This indicates the dark edges is the solid structure that's been cut through. And so those are the areas that has been sliced. So as you see, once again, you're cutting around 4 feet. So anything above that you wouldn't see in a plan view. That's why it's important to kind of have an idea of where you're cutting. The higher you cut, the more information you might see. So we basically typically cut it at a 4-foot height. And this is important as well, to note a north arrow. When we start to do our plans, you'll notice a north arrow. On the plan, there's always a true north. But if you rotate your plan on your picture plane, you must rotate the north arrow to be true to what the true north wall is. We do this so that we can identify each wall, north, south, east, and west. And it's important to have some kind of orientation when we're looking at a plan. Just knowing we can communicate and say the east wall is this or so forth. So having a north arrow is very important on your plan views, and you will find them in all plan views. Now, once we start to try to create a plan view, the first thing we want to do is we want to block out the drawing. Now, I will be doing a demo on blocking out the drawing, but what this entails is you're going to be taking a plan view. You're going to scale it up to 1/4 of an inch, and you're going to have to block it out. We always block out from the outside inward. So you try to create your first overall size. Maybe it's an overall rectangle. And then you get more and more detailed as you continue into the space. But you want to start to block it out. This is why I don't encourage you to just go in and start doing your final floor plan initially. You want to have it utilize your, different various lines, and it doesn't have to be that neat. And this gives you a chance to figure out and dimension and allow all these guidelines to help create this space, and it takes some time. So when you're blocking out a drawing, you want to make sure you're at the appropriate scale. It's very important because this plan view will become the actual basically foundation of all the rest of your drawings. So if it is not in the correct scale, then all your drawings will be incorrect. So first you will start to like lay out outside drawings or lines and start creating an outline. Then you will start to go in and start to mark some of your walls. And we'll do this in a demo video. But basically, you're going to start to identify some of those more structural edges of the building boundaries. Then as you go in, you start to carve it more and you start to add in some interior walls. And this will be done by placing the scale onto your reference plan and then converting it and placing it onto your block out. And it is a process. And you have to be careful that when you're doing this, that you are adding the appropriate thickness to the major walls and the structural elements. Each interior wall and exterior wall has a thickness. So the exterior walls are thicker than the interior walls. Exterior walls are usually 6 inches, while the interior, as you're drafting, will only be 4 inches. And we go by just standard construction and what you're adding on. Exteriors are thicker because they have added exterior finishes, and they are 2 inches thicker. So as you go inside the walls, we have to make sure that we draft those according to the correct thickness. So you start to kind of, pull some of your drawings and you start to add in different, and it starts to come and you carving out that space. And then you start to add the thickness of your wall. So once you get the outline, then you go inward to add the thickness of your wall. We also, then we start to add some architectural features to our space. We'll start placing the doors where they are located, the openings, the windows, things like the stairwell and a fireplace or any built-in cabinetry. So as you go, you start from the outside in and you really start to carve out the space. And once you start to, create your openings, then you can add these details, door swings, door thicknesses, adding in little fixture features like a toilet or a tub. Here we start to carve out the fireplace and the stairs. So we start to put the treads and the risers on there. So like I said, you start off general and you work your way in and you carve out the space, adding more and more architectural details. And then next, once you start to kind of get into that mode, we want to make sure that we have certain considerations. And as we start carving out the space, we want to know where you can see where the mass meets, where the items that are construction like meet items that are negative space. So how do we know what's structural and what's negative and positive space? This is when our line weights come in handy. The thicker and heavier the line weight, the more structural the item is. We use heavy line weights, medium or intermediate line weights, and light line weights, all to show different architectural features. So the rules of line weights apply. A heavy line weight is usually for the profile plan shape. The element that was cut in half. Imagine your house being cut at 4 feet. You would see all these exterior walls. They would have your heaviest line weights in the walls themselves. And wherever they intercept the walls, they never go into a thin line weight. You always keep it consistent if it's structural. Medium line weights will be found on things such as horizontal surfaces. You may find them in things that are like cabinetry or stair treads. These are architectural features, but they're not structural. And then you'll find the lighter line weights and things like textures and patterns, things that aren't structural but might be like a floor pattern. Maybe there's a brick on the flooring. So you'll get the more detailed and more about materials, you'll see those in a lighter line weight. So we want to talk a little bit about how you create that feeling of heaviness. So constructing mass or spatial areas, you utilize different type tonal values to create a structural look. You can go darker for the walls, and we call that pochane. Poche. To poche something is to fill in the walls, and we discussed how when we do that, we take the back of our vellum and we take the back of our vellum and we use graphite to darken it. Now, the larger these spaces are, we usually maybe make a more lighter gray. The smaller the floor plan, you can go with a real dark, almost black. So it just depends on the firm you're working for, or what they're using to shade in. But you always want your structural walls to be shaded in, and that will really help out with us understanding what's structural and what's not. So as you can see here, they applied the pochane on the exterior walls and all the things that were structural. And like I said, you can do them a little lighter gray. They're just different variations, but make sure you do it on the back side. So this creates a ground figure relationship between construction elements and spatial voids. So now you know that this is open air and these are actual structural elements because they're pochade or darkened in. So you utilize different line applications, and you can make some a little lighter if you want, depending on the size of the drawing. So you have to consider what the content is. And as you start to go further into details, you'll use lighter line weights for little details such as flooring hatches. And like I said, maybe a hearth or different details of cabinetry. But you want to make sure that you're showing where the cuts are by pochane inside the walls themselves. Now, once we start to get into the details, there's certain little symbols that you need to be aware of. So drawing in the floor plan requires adding those little details. And all those details are communication. So you need to know what you're looking at and what does a window look like? What does a door swing look like? What does a hidden line represent? And so forth. So this is the architectural details we add into the plan to create a full look and to communicate what it is. Now, in this process, we want to use a lighter line weight for these more delicate features, a medium to lighter line weight to show these architectural features. So you want to add your doors and you want to make sure they're scaled right. A standard door is 3 feet wide, and that would be for like an exterior door. Some interior doors can be a little smaller, like 30 inches. But if you want to see if a drawing is scaled correctly, just go to the door and measure it. If it's 3 feet, then you know pretty much the whole drawing is scaled. This is a door swing, and we like to show our door swings all the way open like a 90-degree. And the reason why we do that is so that we can make sure that nothing is in the way of that door swing. And it really gives a great visual. Now, what I strongly recommend you all getting, and you're really going to need it, and I didn't mention it, but this is in addition to the furniture template that we talked about. Furniture having beds and a piano and chairs. This one is super important. It is called a home planning layout. This template you will use so much of the time. It has various door swing sizes, various tub, this is a bathtub template, different types of toilets and urinals, whether it's wall mounted or floor mounted toilets. We have stove tops. We have different sinks, different types of sink shapes, and different symbols that are being used. This you will use all the time. When you do your floor plan, I don't want to see any freehand drawing. You'll have to use a template to create the fixtures. So once again, this is home planning and layout template. It has door swings and plumbing fixtures. And that you'll see later on as we go into there. But these are the different kinds of doors. And so we like to show them open. Sometimes they'll show them if they come both ways, it means that the door swings both ways. There are different other things when the door overlaps. This is a sliding door. Over here, you have a little teeny jetting out, and this is what we call a pocket door. And why would we ever put a pocket door into a space? Well, maybe it doesn't have room to swing open. So instead, we have to put a little pocket door in there. You'll see that a lot in hotels because sometimes the hallway in front is not large enough to accommodate a swing door. So you just have a pocket door and it slides right into the wall. You just have to make sure you have enough wall to receive the pocket door. So that is what that is. This is what we call a bifold door or accordion door. So they fold. You'll see this a lot in various, whether it's maybe a laundry, a little laundry area where there's a double stack laundry room or a closet. Here is something that is not as common here, but I think one of our restaurants, BJ's, has it. This is a revolving door. They use these a lot back east and when the weather's a little bit more extreme. But there's a revolving door. And then we get into windows. And windows are usually have another secondary line right in the middle. And that represents glazing. Glazing is another expression for windows. So if someone says, what's the glazing? They're referring to windows, window architectural feature. So those elements need to be put into the space. Then secondly, you have to add in things such as your stairwells, and there's different kinds of stairwells. There's just your standard up and down stairwells. There's ones that come back, we call switchback, spiral stairwells. And this particular one has a landing. Stairwells always have a place where you finally land. And it's important to add in the details of the stairwell. Usually in each floor, if you're on the bottom floor, your stairwell will have an arrow with the word up. That's showing that you're on the bottom floor. If you're on the top floor, the stairwell will be showing a line that goes down, representing that's the direction that you would go if you were on the top floor. Stairwells have steps, and we call these steps risers and treads. So you start to add with a nice fine line, a smaller line, those various components. Also, we add the railing sometimes when we're, getting really detailed. And we also always want to show, when you're on the bottom floor, your arrow is going up. And when you're on the top floor, your arrow is going down in a stairwell. Now we use this thing that's diagonal with a little zigzag. This is called a break line. This just lets us know that this continues. So break line just kind of lets us know it continues, and we don't have to continue to add these little horizontal lines. So these are the information that you would add, your arrows, your stair treads, and so forth for stairs. Now, we use different lines for different things, like hidden lines. They're going to show in different components, like overhead cabinetry that you don't see because it's been cut at 4 feet. So it indicates it's something there that you don't see. So hidden lines are very, very important, and we'll point those out more when we look at our floor plan. We also, like I said, they may show cabinetry. Also, they may show construction that you can't see underneath something, or beams. You'll see hidden lines. Sometimes we'll put hidden lines or dashed lines, and like to represent a wall. And what that represents is that means to demo that wall. So if a wall has dashed lines, it means demo it or destroy it. So dashed lines can mean different things. They can be hiding cabinetry. They can be showing demolition. So they all have different representations based on the drawing themselves with the added notes. So dashed lines communicate, or hidden lines, they communicate something important. Now, scaling and detailing. So this is common sense, but it is really just, keeping it simple. Of course, the smaller the drawing, the less the details you can add. The larger the drawing, the more intricate and detailed you can get. So you have to be careful not to put too many details on a very small drawing. Otherwise, it's going to really get lost and it's not going to print very well and blur together. So you're keeping it more simple when it comes to, different scales of drawings. You can be more detailed when it comes to larger drawings and less detailed on the smaller ones. So we're going to proceed and start to get into, you'll see the demo on our floor plan. I will do a demo on how to block it out, a demo how to actually create our title block as well. Remember, all plans go on a picture plane. A picture plane is the space you get to draw on, but it's only the space you get to draw on once you have added the pertinent information like a title block and so forth. Once we block out our drawings, we will then put it underneath a piece of vellum and find out the best location of where we will put our final project or our final drawing. We'll add our north arrow and certain titles. So I'll go through that in the demo. And so, floor plans, horizontal plans, looking down at something at 4 feet. You always start heavy lines on the outside. You move your way in to medium lines for minor construction details, and then the finer details such as the stair treads and some of the cabinetry will be the smaller lines, and maybe hatches for tile. So the more prominent construction, the darker the line. The medium construction, cabinetry, medium lines, and the more fine detailed finishes, the smaller the lines. See you next time. Thanks.